Good morning, students. I am Prakash Tripathi, and today I am going to teach you the 5th chapter of your book Flamingo Indigo. This is written by a British journalist whose name was Louis Fisher. He made his career as a journalist and he wrote for the New York Times. This chapter is an excerpt from his book The Life of Mahatma Gandhi, which became a very popular and a famous book. In this chapter, Indigo, he actually takes an interview of Mahatma Gandhi, and whatever Gandhi tells him, on account of that he has written this chapter or a lesson. So indigo, as you know, I have written here, indigo is a plant that produces blue dye. It is a plant. It is a commercial crop that was grown in Champaran. And when Louis Fisher visited Gandhi for the first time in 1942, Gandhi told him how it all started. He told that I urged the Britishers to leave India. So it is a beginning. I would like to tell you that Champaran episode was a turning point in the life of Mahatma Gandhi as well as in the Indian history also. Gandhi explains him how it all happens, how it took place. When Gandhi was attending an annual convention of Indian National Congress in 1962 at Lucknow, a peasant named Rajkumar Shukla came to him. He was a very emaciated peasant, a very weak person, just as all the peasants look in India. And he requested Gandhi that he had heard a lot about you and he wants his help. And he said that I have come from Champaran, a district in Bihar, which was at the foothill of Himalayas near the kingdom of Nepal. Gandhi told him that I am very busy nowadays, I cannot accompany you as I have my some engagements. I have to go from here to Kanpur and then somewhere else. Rajkumar Shukla was an illiterate person, but he was a very resolute person. When Gandhi refused to go with him, he accompanied Gandhi wherever Gandhi went. If Gandhi went to Kanpur, he went along with him to Kanpur. And after finishing all the work, when Gandhi returned to Seva Ashram, his Ahmedabad in Gujarat, he went there also. So, seeing his tenacity, his firmness, Gandhi actually gave in. He said, okay, I will come with you. So, he fixed a date. Gandhi told him that I am going to come to Calcutta. From there you can pick me up and then I will visit Champaran. Actually, why I would like to tell you why this Rajkumar Shukla had come to Gandhi. Actually, he was a peasant. He was a sharecropper. Sharecropper are those peasants who do their farming on the basis of sharing the crops. They are not the full owner of the crop which they grow, but they get a share of the crop. That is why they were called sharecroppers. Actually, the landlord system was there in Bihar and a lot of injustice was being done to these peasants. What was the injustice? I will discuss later on, but let us see now how Gandhi reaches Champaran and what happens there. When Gandhi reached Champaran, first he went to Rajendra Prasad. He is a lawyer. Later on he became the president of Congress and then the president of India also, Rajendra Prasad. At that time Rajendra Prasad was out of town, so the staff of Rajendra Prasad treated Gandhi as another peasants. He was allowed to sit on the floor. He was not allowed to draw water from the well, lest the water would be polluted. They thought that Gandhi was an untouchable. Okay. After that, Gandhi decided to go first to Muzaffarpur. He had sent a telegram to Acharya J.B. Kripalani, and he was on the station at the midnight. It was a midnight time, and hundreds of students greeted Gandhi on the station. Gandhi stayed for 2 days in the house of a government servant whose name was Professor Malkani. And Gandhi says that staying for 2 days at a government servant's house was an extraordinary event that day, because in those days people were very much afraid. They do not show sympathy for advocate of home rule. Okay, now the advent of Gandhi, hearing his arrival, many people came to see him because they came to know the mission of Gandhi. They knew that a person who had come from Gujarat is their supporter, is the champion, and they started coming to meet Gandhi by their own conveyance. Some came on foot, some came on vehicles, bullock carts, etc. After that, Gandhi had a meeting with the lawyers. The lawyers told him that we are the person who puts up the cases of these peasants to court, and we charge fees also. At that point, Gandhi chided, he scolded those lawyers. He said that taking a big fees from such poor persons, peasants, is not so good. And he was of the opinion that taking the cases to the court will do a little good for the peasants. Actually, he wanted that the fear which was in the mind of the peasants should be removed. So, Gandhi told Shukla that I would look into the matter, I would help you, but he also wanted to take the help of the lawyers. The lawyers also wanted, they had heard about Gandhi, about his name and fame in South Africa. So they were looking with a great hope that Gandhi would definitely help him. Now, what was the problem of the peasants? Let us discuss that thing. Okay, most of the arable lands, means the fertile land which was in Champaran, was owned by the Englishman, and the workers and worked by Indian tenants. The chief commercial crop was indigo. The farmers were compelled to grow 15% of their holding with indigo crop, and they have to surrender entire crop as a rent to the Englishmen. This was being done by a long-term contract. Meanwhile, what happened? It was found that Germany had started producing the synthetic fiber. Now, once synthetic indigo came into the picture, this indigo, there was no need of indigo. So, these Englishmen released the sharecropper from growing indigo, but they charged 15% as a compensation. They said that they would relieve him from growing the indigo crop, but they have to pay them compensation for being released from the 15% arrangement. Some of the peasants signed willingly, some of them said that we are not going to sign, and they hired lawyers. And on the other hand, the Englishmen hired thugs. They started bullying the peasants, they started harassing the peasants. At this juncture of point, Gandhi arrived. When Gandhi came, he began to get the facts. He wanted to know himself. Though Rajkumar Shukla had told him many things, but he wanted to know the facts by himself. So first he went to the British official commissioner of the Tirhut division, British official commissioner, but he refused to give any information to Gandhi. Then he also visited the secretary of the British Landlord Association. He also tried to bully him. He said, you are an outsider. In short, Gandhi did not get any sort of help either from the British Landlord Association secretary and neither from the British official commissioner. But Gandhi did not give up. He said, I am not an outsider. I am not going to leave this Champaran. I have come to help, so I will do. Gandhi did not leave. Instead, he proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran. Meanwhile, several lawyers accompanied with Gandhiji. And he got a report from a village that a peasant was maltreated, means ill-treated. And Gandhi wanted to know what was the case. So he sat back on an elephant and he started going to that peasant's house. Meanwhile, a messenger, an official messenger, government servant, interrupted him and gave him a notice. Gandhi complied. He signed the notice. He obeyed the orders of the government. But when he read the notice, it was written in the notice that you have to leave this area at once. Gandhi signed the notice. He received the notice, but he refused to leave Champaran. He said, I am not going to leave anyway. As a result, he was sent a summon. He was asked to appear before the court. Now when the peasants came to know that their supporter, their champion was in some trouble, thousands of people, thousands of peasants came to at the court. This was a spontaneous reaction by thousands of peasants for the first time in history of India. And seeing the big crowd, all the officials were baffled. They were confused. They could not understand what to do with such a big crowd. And they took the help of Gandhi. Gandhi helped the officials to regulate the crowd. He controlled the crowd. He told them to keep quiet. And actually the officers, they wanted to talk to their high command, to their superior authorities, what to do in such condition. Gandhi was asked to take a bail. Actually, the judge announced that 2 hours, there will be a 2 hours lunch break, and during the lunch break, Gandhiji was asked to take a bail. The plan was that they wanted to release Gandhi on account of the bail, but Gandhi refused to take the bail. He said, why should I take the bail? I have not done any crime. And Gandhi was released without bail. So this was the first step. This was the first victory of Gandhi in Champaran. You cannot imagine. It was a great event because Gandhiji was released without any bail. Now, the lawyers, now Gandhi started planning that though government has released me without bail, but I can be arrested any moment. So all the lawyers gathered and they started discussing among themselves that what we should do when Gandhi would go to the jail. The lawyers said that if Gandhi goes to jail, we would also return back to our home. But later on they discussed among themselves and they started thinking, pondering. An outsider is ready to go to jail for the cause, for the purpose of the peasants, and we being Biharis, we being the residents of Bihar, are not helping our peasants. Instead, we are trying to return back to our house. They really felt ashamed of themselves, and they came back and told Gandhi that now if you go to jail, we will also accompany you to the jail. Hearing this, Gandhi exclaimed. He was so happy. He said, now the battle of Champaran is won. And for the first time after that, the case against Gandhi was dropped. And Gandhi says that civil disobedience triumphed in the history of modern India for the first time. Gandhi did not stop here. He started his far-flung inquiries. All the dispositions were collected. People started giving the documents. And finally, Sir Edmund Gate, the Lieutenant Governor, had to set a committee. There was a committee, an official commission inquiry was set to solve the problem of the sharecroppers. In that committee, officials were there, landlords were there, and Gandhi represented the peasants. The official inquiry assembled a crushing mountain of evidence. It was a fact. Actually, the landlords had extorted the money from the peasants illegally, deceitfully. So it was a clear proof, and now the landlords realized that they cannot win this battle. and they wanted to pay the refund. They wanted to refund the money which they had taken from the peasant. But the question was what amount of money they had to pay. Some thought that Gandhi would demand 100%. But Gandhi said no, 50%. If you return 50% of the money, it's okay. Many people thought that Gandhi would be adamant on this 50%, but to the surprise, Gandhi broke the deadlock and he agreed for 25% of the refund money. When he was asked, why did you agree for the settlement of just 25%? Gandhi gave the explanation. He said, money was not that important. What was important was the landlords who considered themselves above law, they had agreed to return some part of their money, and with them they had also agreed to lose their prestige also. They were not only returning the money, they were not only losing the money, they were losing their prestige also with that. Because before that they would consider themselves above law. The farmers learned the courage. They knew that they have some rights. They can defend their rights also. And events justified Gandhi's decision. Because within a few years, the British planters abandoned their estate, which was reverted, given back to the peasants, and the indigo sharecropping disappeared forever. The problem of the indigo sharecroppers was completely solved. But after this, Gandhi had actually come there for a very short period. But continuously he stayed there for 7 months. In between he used to go to Ahmedabad for his ashram, but he remained more than an year in Champaran. After the problem of solving the indigo sharecrop, Gandhi started something different. He saw that there was a lot of cultural and social backwardness in Champaran. People were illiterate. They did not know the value of cleanliness, sanitation. The health condition was very miserable. So he called some volunteers. There were many disciples of Gandhi. Many people came from different parts of country. 5 primary schools were opened. His youngest son, Devdas Gandhi, also came. His wife Kasturba also came from Ahmedabad, and primary school was started there. Basic education was given, and the health conditions were very miserable. Gandhi called on doctors. They also came to give their volunteer service for 6 months. 3 types of medicines were provided: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. So these were the things done by Gandhi along with the problem of the indigo sharecropping. And the Champaran episode was a turning point in the life of Gandhi. And Gandhi says that it was not just an act of defiance. Defiance means to disobey. He had not come there to disobey the orders of the British government. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of a large number of peasants, poor peasants. To alleviate means to remove the problems, the distress in which the peasants were there. In the last paragraph of the book, there is a very nice incident. There was an English pacifist. A pacifist is a person who loves peace, and he was a great follower of Mahatma Gandhi. His name was Charles Freer Andrew. He stayed there in the Champaran, and he was ready to leave that place. He wanted to go to Fiji Island. He had come to bid farewell to Gandhi. Actually, the lawyers, they thought that if Charles Andrew remains with us, it would be a great help, because he was an Englishman, and if an Englishman will fight against the Englishmen, it will give them a great victory. They can win the battle easily. Gandhi saw this. He said, no, this is very wrong. You are taking the prop. You want to get the support of an Englishman. Just because he's an Englishman, this shows your weakness. He says, if your cause is just, if you are fighting for the right thing, you will get victory. And he did not, he vehemently, strongly opposed this support of Andrew Führer. He said, the cause is just and we would won the battle. And how right Gandhi was. Rajendra Prasad says that Gandhi had read the minds of the lawyers very well. And in this way, he taught us the lesson in self-reliance. So, the last line I would like to say, self-reliance means not to depend on anyone else, and this he proved by giving the example of Andrew. Indian independence, see the demonstration of the people, spontaneous demonstration of the people for the court arrest gave energy to Gandhi, and he thought that I can fight this Indian freedom struggle with the help of these people. And the help to sharecropper. All these three things. Once again I repeat, self-reliance, Indian independence, and the problem of the sharecroppers. All these three elements were intertwined together. So, were bound together, they were mixed up all together. So, this is the whole chapter. I have tried to explain you each and everything. And Gandhi really got a moral boost from this episode of Champaran. No doubt the incident was a turning point in the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.